Yo, how are you doing, folks? Welcome to episode 14 of the Simpa Life Podcast. I am joined, as always, by Mr. Maca. How are you today, brother?
He asked me again. I can't fucking believe it. I am doing very well. Thank you very much. I've got my poo power shake over here. Oh, it's not poo power shake. It's plant protein. And I'm good to go. I am very, very much looking forward to this. This should be a really, really diverse and interesting one today. Tonight, whatever.
Whenever you're listening to this, folks, I love putting him on the spot at the start of this. We get uncomfortable within 4 minutes of listening. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Anyway, today's guest, we are joined by a man that you may have seen quite a lot in the media recently. He is Philip Antony Bevington, better known as Tony. He's an 80-year-old man from Cornwall, well, originally from London, who moved to Cornwall, where he was prosecuted for cultivation of cannabis twice. I must admit, I applaud your bravery of being arrested and then almost immediately going home and going, fuck this, I'm going to set back up. You were cultivating for stage 3 kidney failure and for sort of personal pain and to treat various ailments. Your first plant set up, I believe, was 30 plants, according to the prosecution service, and the second one, 44, set up in his garage. So without further ado, we will give you the man himself to outline a bit more of the story.
Yeah, well, they said it was hydroponics. It wasn't. It was in soil, the way I know how to grow. There were 27 plants on the first bust. They took my medicine. So what the hell was I supposed to do?
Yeah.
And they saw it as a finger. I took it as the inevitable action. So I grew again. And I never hid it. I stepped out of my back gate and there they were. Oh, we understand you might be growing cannabis. Yes, of course I am. It's my medicine.
Yeah.
And I expected different treatment to what I got.
Yeah.
So I showed them the plants and they took them. And then 2 months later, they came back. Have you got any cannabis in the house? I said, yes, I'm growing again, of course. What was I supposed to do?
What was the justification? Sorry, Tony. What was the justification for the second?
They'd come to caution me for the first one.
Fuck off.
Wow.
So I could have got away with a caution if I hadn't grown again, but it wasn't that. I needed that med.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. But it just shows the integrity of who you are as a person, that they asked and you answered. You could have been deceptive, you could have been deceitful and tried to manipulate them to get off with it. But in your eyes, and I suppose in a great deal of our listeners' eyes and ears, they will see this as a miscarriage of justice. The fact that you've identified something that helps you, it works, you're set up and cultivating for yourself, you're not part of a criminal marketplace. And then through their ignorance of the law, they decide to deal with you in this way is
it's against the law. And whether it's medicine or not, the policeman said it's irrelevant. He's not interested.
Why? Why the fuck aren't you interested? Because you fucking should be. Sorry, well, I'm getting hot already.
I gave him a right ear bending about the endocannabinoid system and all that. And he didn't like it and said, well, I'm certainly not going to be recommending you for the Pathfinder course, which in Cornwall is the drug rehabilitation. He said you'll give them a terrible hard time. And I would have done.
But I mean, there is sort of power of discretion and whatever else. I mean,
and I suppose it depends on the copy you get. I got this particular individual who's been 26 years a beat cop in Camborne and has never risen above that. He's a bully. He's well known for it. And he's not interested in anything except marks on his arrest voucher or whatever they get.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to hope that within the ranks, he is derided by his peers for effectively, apologies for the way it sounds, but picking on an 80-year-old man. For you're infirm, you're ill, you've had to take to this course of action to prolong your life, to better your health. And exactly that. He's come after you and treating this like he's just busted Al Capone. You know what I mean?
Oh, no, it's illegal. And what the law says you must do, and you're not supposed to question it.
But that's all bullshit. I mean, the cops in this country, under the PACE code, the Police and Community Together Pact, means that they have to do due diligence. They have to do due diligence on every single crime.
He didn't.
Well, of course not, because not one of them do. I mean, I'm hoping that what's happening with Seed Our Future and other organizations like We the Undersigned are going to show the fragility and the failures of this system, because these laws don't make sense. They're unevidenced and they're unethical.
Oh yes, but there's an ulterior motive in there somewhere by the powers that be. I haven't quite put my finger on it, but I'd say it's something like collusion with pharma and financial vested interests, something like that. And there could be a smidgen of, we've got the chance to control the bastards.
Well, I think it's a fear thing as well. So I think ultimately when a case comes across the Crown Prosecution Service desk, they have to consider, is it a viable prosecution? Can we actually get a prosecution at the end of the day? And is it within the public interest?
Yes.
I can't understand how this case got to the level it did.
It's because I did it twice.
Well, yeah, I suppose obviously, yeah, they saw it as a fuck you to the system, but ultimately that is ever more. But it's also ever more evidence of you found something that worked and you wanted to continue utilizing it. There wasn't a framework for you to access it. I mean, you subsequently had to get a prescription, didn't you?
Eventually, yeah, when it became available. I don't like doing it because I feel like I'm letting down my friends who can't. Mm-hmm. Particularly someone like Kevin Middleditch, the guy that's really seen me through the whole of this bloody awful 14 months. Mm. And he who turned me vegan. And
all right, I want to hear about that. Go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead. Tell us what happened there.
Well, he started running my support site for me, and we spent an hour every night chatting, and we have a lot in common. Even though he's 30 years younger than me, I'm on the same wavelength. And he said to me one day, you are what you eat.
It's the truth. It is 100% the truth.
He's treating his illness, diverticulitis among others, with a very strict diet. So I thought, well, he's right, and let's follow him. I can't say that I'm doing it for moral grounds. I'm doing it for myself, my body. Mm-hmm. And my daughter cooks in the kitchen and chicken and stuff, and I'm like, oh Christ, he had bacon this evening, no less, and I'm like, oh for God's sake.
Well, you're a better man than I. My diet is predominantly vegan, and I've said that to Simpa before, to his confusion. Well, I have no subscription to it. I'm very appreciative of the meat that I eat, but it's rare. Do you know that kind of way? My biggest crux is eggs. Eggs, they just provide so much protein for me, and I fucking love them. I really do. I'm not going to beat around the bush about it. I'm not going to feel guilty about it either. But I do go out of my way to source them very sustainably. So
it's a diet where what I've done is to try things, and some have an adverse effect. I get wind, or I fart a lot, or I get the runs.
Yeah.
And I think, no, that's out the diet. And then there's other things like sugar. Yeah. Everybody says, oh, don't take sugar. And I love sugar. And I'm having real trouble cutting that down. So it's not just vegan, but it's a specific diet that I'm trying to develop for myself. And everyone should do that.
I think so too. You owe it to yourself. Yeah. Why not?
Indeed, we're all as unique as anything else. I mean, we are just... The makeup of our body, it depends on the stresses of our life. It depends on our genetics, the combination of our environment, and many other factors. So exactly that. If you can take control of your diet and take control of your nutrition, you can optimize that which goes into you, so you're not then left feeling lethargic or sluggish from extra processing of compounds and food that you don't then need in the system. With regard to sort of sugar, I found a great deal of positive effect with transferring and giving up cane sugar, moving on to plant-based sugars, eating a lot more fruits and stuff like.
There's always that.
I've got a cupboard full of Tylenol, coconut sugar, and I'll only use it if I run out of processed white.
Well, look,
yeah, I can see. Go on, Maca.
No, I was gonna say, not to be, please don't take this as an insensitive comment to make, but I mean, if I was your age, I'd be doing as much as I can as you're doing, trying to to streamline it and make it as efficient as you can be, but always keep that treat because fuck it. Do you know that kind of way? I mean, I don't have to do. I can be a bit more stringent because I'm a lot younger. But yeah, I'd be like, I don't know if I'd have your discipline. I hope to have your discipline when I'm your age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same, man. I mean, to be able to go through that. I mean, dietary changes and lifestyle changes are something that most people don't consider with illness. Unfortunately,
I think it has helped with my kidney failure. I think I'm using a dual-pronged approach, the cannabis. Mm-hmm. And the cannabis meds, incidentally, I've thrown away 50% of my pharmaceutical meds now. I don't take any blood pressure tablets, and they're supposed to keep my blood pressure down so my kidneys don't get bad. Mm-hmm. But I've thrown them away. I have a tiny little bit of oil in the morning and a tiny bit at night, and mm-hmm. that's all I need.
In conjunction with
the odd joint.
But obviously, in conjunction with the streamlined diet is obviously giving you what you need to reduce your blood pressure naturally. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Nice.
So what are your doctors saying? Because obviously, if you prescribe now,
get out.
So what are the specialists say? Are your specialists?
The specialist, he's amazing. He's interested in me and what I did and what I know about it. So it was, what strains did you grow? What were they, indica, sativa? What were you looking for out of them? But mm-hmm. he wanted to know the names of the strains. Mm.
It's interesting that yeah, I suppose he's coming at it from almost a street, apologies for the way this sounds, but the street sort of thinking. You know, if he's looking down sort of sativa and cultivar, sativa and indica, various strains rather than cultivars, that shows that's quite almost an antiquated way of thinking this, but it's cool because that means that they're interested more than just from an academic point of view.
Us. They are learning off us.
Yeah, so in some ways, I suppose it's a good thing that we can have that it's not a reciprocal relationship. That's the thing I find is the problem, is we're giving a lot of information and data to these organizations that are prescribing cannabis with each one of these monthly visits, and we're telling them this about that. They're able to then perfect and create better products, I suppose, that will, yes, help the end consumer, but it also then, it still doesn't address the argument of, well, you could grow this at home. You should be allowed to grow this at home if you want to, because I mean, the whole process of cultivating a seed and looking after it and nurturing it and then watching it go through flower and then being able to cure it and dry it and then consuming it at the end, that is equally, in my eyes, as healing as parts of the compounds. I
totally agree with that. Totally agree. I had a deck chair up in my grow room and I used to sit there and read and enjoy the sunshine. And it was incredibly relaxing.
I mean, because we've had a little jib jab before the show, I just found this out and I'm absolutely obsessed with it. Because as some of the listeners will know, I do have an allotment and I'm in love with it. I love it, and I'm obsessed with trying to get a self-sustained thing going, in the long term or whatever. I can't do it just yet, but I'm trying to piece the small little bits together, and then over the long term.
Bloody hard work.
It is.
Bloody hard work. I had 6 cows that initially I milked by hand, and then I got a machine and fitted it in, and we would process 10 gallons of milk in the morning and 10 gallons of milk at night. Wow. Turn that into butter, cheese, yogurt.
Yeah.
And then we'd keep the calves from the cow, rear them on to 1,000 pounds and kill them and eat them.
So you were really, really self-sufficient.
Yeah, I had 3 pigs and 10 babies with each.
So did you sell any of the excess, or was it just you and your family that you provided for?
I bartered. I used to swap a pig for 24 stone of Dublin Bay prawns from a fisherman at St Ives.
That's class. I love that.
Yeah, that's a great way of living. So how long did you sort of live
20
like that?
years.
20 years. What did you do for energy?
We hadn't got round to that side of it at all.
What, like candles and stuff? Was that what you were doing?
No. We had electric lights.
Oh, sorry. Right.
Yeah.
We weren't off grid.
Yeah.
Right, sorry.
I wish we had been, and I was aiming at it, but
yeah.
I suppose that the benefit that you'll have had on sort of the environment and in terms of the lessening of the carbon footprint and the impact by living that way for so long will have had such a positive effect overall on the local ecology and the environment, like I said.
Yes, but the problem is in Cornwall, a lot of rich people have turned up and bought the little small holdings like I had and tarted them up and made them look bijou and spoiled it. My place has been bought up like that and I wouldn't recognize it. And I go there because in 1987, my wife had a brain hemorrhage and fell down the stairs. And 6 weeks later, I had to turn the life support machine off on her.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, man.
Sorry.
So that's why I sold the place. I'd have still been there otherwise.
Yeah, that's heavy.
And I ran away. I sold the farm and ran away. I went and I drove right from Toronto to Vancouver.
Yeah, I was a bit harsh with the run away bit. I'm not necessarily sure if you ran away. I mean, you know,
I couldn't be there. I was looking for memories. I needed.
Yeah, but I mean,
I drove from Seattle to Los Angeles and back.
Wow. How long did that take?
6 months.
Oof. See, that's ridiculous. It's some. I must admit, I looked at this because I obviously did an American road trip a while ago, and I flew into Colorado and drove around a bit. So I drove LA to Seattle, and I was looking at the potential.
That's a hell of a drive, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, a beautiful, unbelievable country. I couldn't believe the scale of the place. Everything I've seen in American films, it's still only just snippets of tiny pockets of the country. Yeah. The rest of it is vastly uninhabited. The roads go on infinitum, and there's just no traffic, and it's just nature everywhere, and it's breathtaking views, amazing weather. So yeah, man, and doing it back in the day as well, I imagine would have been a lot more fun without all the speed cameras and everything else.
1987, I was one.
I bought a 28-foot long 8-cylinder Cadillac.
Oh, no way! Was it?
And the pictures in my book.
Wow.
I just drove.
Yeah. Wow.
Finished up in Vancouver to fly back to England, and my friends. I was living between two pine trees on a friend's small holding. He'd built a house 60 foot up in the air.
Wow.
I lived in this house. And my friend's 12-year-old son came up and I tossed in my car keys, said, yeah, it's yours now. I got the number plates in my bag. I left him the car. Years later, I saw him and he said, that car got me into a lot of trouble.
What color was the Cadillac? Was it pink?
Sort of silvery pink.
Oh, it was. Oh, proper.
It's exactly what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, that is well.
And I drove across the mountains, the Rockies, and on my CD I played "I've Got the Money and I'm Going to Have Fun" by Ry Cooder.
Sorry, go ahead.
I blew 10 grand of my wife's insurance money on that trip.
Wow.
But come back looking like a cowboy.
Cathartic though, I bet.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
So bored, I said, I can't sit around here doing nothing. So I signed up with voluntary services overseas and went to Papua New Guinea.
Wow. So this was what, a couple of months or a year or so after you got back?
No, less than 6 months.
Wow. So you really didn't settle down then?
No.
So voluntary services. What were you volunteering? What were you
My
doing?
skills.
So what did you?
They were looking for an agricultural teacher in a remote school up in the mountains of the Eastern Highlands of Papua New Guinea.
Oh wow.
And I went there. It was like turning the clock back 150 years, and the people were amazing, and I loved them, and I gave my humanity to them, and they did to me.
That's fabulous. I mean, it's something that you just mentioned two things that are obviously they're on an awful lot of people's bucket lists, but specifically the secondary one to go to a place like that and just let go of everything. I mean, whenever I used to listen to Terence McKenna, that's what I'd always envision him doing. You know, when he's taking like heavy DMT or ayahuasca trips or whatever, and it just. I remember listening to 2 or 3 hour like podcasts. It wouldn't be podcasts, I guess, but you know, audio of just him explaining what was around him and what was happening. And I mean, I have this fear now, obviously, from COVID and the lockdowns and whatever, that I'm never ever going to be able to do those things in the same way as you did.
I didn't do it till I was 50.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that we get back to a point globally where I'm actually able to do that. You just go, fuck it, I'm off.
I'll give you a contact in Papua New Guinea.
There you go. We can start there.
Hey, if we can get you a good satellite internet connection, we can do the show from there, Maca. It'll be fine. So how long did you stay in Papua New Guinea?
I did 2 years, came back, and 6 weeks later I was in Botswana. I signed up with the British Council for Teacher in Botswana scheme, and I spent 7 years there. I was in a town called Gaborone, the capital, initially, and I wanted to be a bit adventurous, so I signed on for this. Everyone said the worst school in the country, 400 miles from a shop in the middle of the Okavango Delta. You drive 400 miles through the Kalahari, get off and get in a boat and drive 75 miles out into the swamp. Crocodiles, hippos, elephants.
Wow.
And I was there in a school. I had 10 acres of bush and I turned it into a school farm.
No way. All right, so tell us about that then. Go on. I mean, what was... what were the differences?
You've got student labour. I didn't do the work. I just stood there and said, do this and do that. Because I got all these young men, strong, strapping young men.
Yeah.
I was giving them what I knew and teaching them as I did it.
Mm. But I mean, did you have, obviously there are two separate climates. I mean, how much adapting would you have had to have done to your process that you would have
Papua New Guinea is 90% humidity.
Yeah.
Botswana is 4%.
Oh. Quite a difference then. So how did you find adapting
I preferred the humid climate.
Was it easier to grow in or just to live in?
To live in. You could grow anywhere if you do it right. The garden we had was sand, nothing but sand. Mm-hmm. So the kids collected loads of elephant shit and whatnot, and we put it in the garden.
Yeah.
Wow.
I built a huge irrigation system. I made a pump into the Okavango Delta, pumped up into the garden, into a huge tank, and gravity fed into irrigators.
Wow.
That's so impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, you can tell, I mean, for everybody listening to this, we don't have much to say because we haven't lived in comparison to you, for fuck's sake.
I've travelled, but only, I admit at this point, rather hedonistic it would seem. I do try and give my humanity, but Tony, I take my hat off to you, man.
That's class, man.
I loved every minute of it.
Where else did you travel in the region?
In Papua New Guinea, you'd probably get your life threatened at least 3 times a week.
In what capacity? Like,
just you'd piss somebody off.
And what, like knives, guns, what?
Machetes.
Oh God, no.
Big machetes. I've seen a bloke split from head to toe.
Fuck. Whoosh. What, like in the movies and shit, like Itchy the Killer? Have you ever seen that?
It's a bit messier than that.
Yeah, I bet. Jesus. So where else? What did you volunteer?
Well, then I went I went to an island called Ponape. I worked for the New York Police Department.
What?
Who had a college on this island that they funded.
Mm-hmm.
But I worked for the New York Police Department.
Wow.
It was an amazing flight from London. And I'd got a Papua New Guinea wife and a kid by then.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
We flew down into Hawaii, then all across the atolls. There's Majuro, Kwajalein, lots of different atolls that stretch for miles. Mm-hmm. But they're so narrow, sometimes the plane's wings hung over the sea, either side.
Oof.
And
wow.
Ponape had 100 feet of rain a year. I grew fungus in places that you wouldn't believe.
No more. Don't expand on that. Just leave that there.
The doctor said, "Oh man, you've got crotch rot."
Oh my! What size was the island? Like, what sort of population size?
It was about 50 miles round.
Woof, that's not that big. That's
No,
not that big at all.
not very big at all.
So why did the NYPD have a college on this island?
Catholic Jesuit priests had opened the college and then got funded by the New York Police Department. So I was kind of letting my humanity go and working for the Catholic Church, which always sat uneasily with me.
Oh man! So how long were you out there for?
I was there for 2 years and had to be repatriated because I had caught a disease and I went to bed in a coma and didn't wake up for 2 days. Oof. My wife had panicked and run away, and I hadn't eaten or drunk for 2 days. I'm dying, and I wake up and there's all these kids around the bed. And I said, "Oh, what do you want?" "Oh, we've come to see the white man die."
Oh,
wow.
So I was like, "Well, go and get Mr. So-and-so from next door," and they did. And I spent 18 days in hospital. I had dengue fever.
What's dengue fever?
An acute form of vomiting and diarrhea.
Oh shit. So an emptying of the body.
Totally.
Christ. Wow.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You probably got a more relevant question.
No, it wasn't a relevant question. It was just something attributable to what I was talking about earlier as well. Is like Ibogaine. Isn't like one of the side effects from a shitload of Ibogaine is severe vomiting and diarrhea. You essentially cleanse your entire fucking body. It's like that doesn't sound fucking pleasant at all, and people choose to do that.
There were benefits from being ill. The nurse in the hospital was stunningly pretty.
Always got to look on the bright side of life.
Yep. Yes. Very beautiful Pacific Island girl.
Nice. So you say you were out there for what, 18 days. So then you obviously got repatriated. Was it a long recovery, or were you pretty much all right when you got back on British soil?
I had to fly back, so I had to be fit. And I flew back, and about 6 months later, I'm in Papua New Guinea. Again. Yes.
Wow. So how long then did you spend on this adventure of literally flying out to a place, volunteering your time and your
20
skills?
years.
20 years. Damn. So when did you settle down in the end? When did you come back to the UK and sort of dig roots?
Down. In 2010, I went out on my own. And I think it's one of the reasons my wife divorced me. I was asked to write an article on indigenous gardening in Papua New Guinea for a magazine.
Right.
So I went out, and I've got some amazing videos and films. I traveled all the way up different places, up into the mountains. I've got videos of it all.
Wow.
I'd love to see those.
And I went places where everybody said, "Oh, you can't do that. You'll get killed. White man die." And I said, "No, I'm going to do it. I'll be all right." I spoke the language really fluently, I should say.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, Melanesian Pidgin, because there's 800 languages in Papua New Guinea.
Sorry, stop.
800.
How?
Well,
Are they just do?
It's volcanic island, and one tribe, one side of the mountain, wouldn't know the other tribe was the other side, so they'd never meet, and they had their own languages.
Wow. Well, was there any sort of?
Is there a lot of crossover?
Was there commonality?
Very little.
What?
Little.
So how many languages then would the average sort of person in the region speak, or do they literally remain localized because of that?
Before we turned up, white man, I mean, probably 6. But when we turned up, they all got confused because they got moved around, so they invented Pidgin English.
I really want to know about the history of that.
English and German all added together.
Wow. Well, I suppose actually, yeah, because if you think of the colonistic powers when Europe was, I would say, invading, as they would say, exploring the rest of the world. Yeah, they created all these colonies, and they were seeking to save the savage. You know what I mean? To turn them to religion and to their philosophies of
religion, and the white man fucked them up.
Yeah,
I hate what I see. Do you know the Pidgin word for white man is master?
No way. Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's disgusting.
MASTA, but
still, come on, that's actually revolting.
Yeah.
And I'd say, name belong me, no God master, name belong me Tony. So name that belongs to me.
Yeah.
Simple enough.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when I get Jehovah's Witnesses knock at the door, I greet them with, "Oh, morning now, me like helping you. You got one and something."
I'd imagine the eyes would be like that, going, "Back away."
Yeah. Fucking hell! Wow. I'm blown away. To be honest with you, Tony, I'm actually slightly speechless. To be honest with you, as our listeners can probably hear. So obviously, you mentioned before you're an author as well. You've written an autobiography.
Oh, I just wrote in lockdown. I wrote the story of my life. I was unfortunate enough to have relatively rich parents.
I think I said unfortunate enough. I like that.
Well, because my idiot mum and dad sent me to a private boarding school, and considerable amount of that book dwells on the sexual abuse, the bullying that I underwent, and the stupidity, which is why I can't be a Tory to save my life.
Wow, I do want to check out your book. I already had an interest in it anyway when I found out that you had written it, but having
I guess there'll have to be a sequel now, won't there? Post-court, because I finish with the bust.
Yeah, exactly that. So, I mean, I guarantee you, unless this book is this thick, you've still got a lot more stories to tell. So it's
I've got a million stories.
What? So,
I wanted to be a storyteller, you know?
Well, now is the perfect opportunity.
Absolutely.
You can use that paid-for education to do so.
One of the best benefits of traveling in third world or developing countries is you meet a completely different point of view of life. And what it taught me was that making judgments about people by what they look like is a really dumb thing to do. And I just can't do it anymore.
Yeah. No, you know what? I think an awful lot of people struggle with that, Tony. Do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, we're talking about here is my perception of the ego. I know myself and Simpa differ on that ground a small bit, but having said that, like, I mean, I find it very problematic to project any sort of judgment on others anymore. And cannabis has helped me break that down, you know, that kind of way, because I was very arrogant when I was young, quite not like overtly so, but I thought a lot of myself, you know, that kind of way. Yeah, I was a bit of a dickhead, let's put it that way.
I know I was.
but what I'm saying is, like, I actually came to it's not a misjudgment, like a misconception, I guess, that this happened for me. So by taking cannabis, this will happen for everybody. And it really didn't happen that way at all. You really have to have that want, as I've mentioned before. You have to really want to change the way the way that your verbalization, the way that you think on a daily basis. If you don't truly want that, it's never going to fucking happen, as I've said before.
I think you can help it happen.
You can. But I mean, at the end of the day,
I teach yoga breathing therapy called rebirthing from the 70s. It's very hippie, but it changed me. I went to my parents and said, "I forgive you for sending me to that crap boarding school. I don't make judgments about people, and I don't mind what people think when they look at me." That sparks off a memory. In the Cornish paper, the report of my bust, somebody said, "Oh, he looks like a garden gnome."
You cheeky fucker.
And it doesn't bother me, because that's just their opinion. And if I'm fool enough to take their opinion on board, then suffer the consequences. I don't take what people give me.
Yeah, and just to relate to that, sorry, Simpa, I'm cutting you off, mate, but fuck you. No, but just to finish off what I was saying, because this relates to it, is one of the reasons for me wanting to change was I was tired of it. It was too much of a fucking burden to keep going. What was the fucking point? If I don't feel the need to judge other people, guess what? I feel fucking great about myself. Because, do you know that kind of way? There's no fucking... I just look at other people and I go, grand, yeah, you cracked the fuck on.
Well, of course, you know, what other people think when they look at you is actually none of your business.
Yeah, true. This is true.
Yeah, in fucking entirely. And I think you raise upon an interesting point there, Maca, of it's the same is true with psychedelics. It's the same true with, as you said, of yogic breathing exercises, various schools of yoga or Tai Chi, martial arts. There are a multitude of tools and of outlets for energy and disciplines that people can learn, that during that process, they learn about themselves. They hold that mirror up to themselves and they start to question who they are, how they see the world and what they believe. And in that process, cannabis can be massively beneficial because it causes introspection and metacognition. It allows you to really get into yourself and think about stuff that can lead sometimes to paranoid states, but often that is just your consciousness seeking to solve a problem that you were unaware of, and it's bringing awareness to that. And in those moments of, say, freaking out, or even some people will lead to panic attacks in that situation, through doing simple breathing exercises, through grounding, various other techniques, you'll be able to sort of bring that attention back to yourself and lessen that experience. I think it's all about that individual experience. We lose that too much in our mass marketed culture society. And I think exactly what Tony was saying before about sort of the judgment of another. There's one thing we all seem to miss in this, and that's their intention. So that person may genuinely have just been being friendly and trying to make a joke, whereas they could have equally have been trying to be vicious and being, you look like a troll sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? And we can never really truly know that, especially not in the internet. People will type messages and send whatever, and we read it as we perceive it. So that we can't change them sending the message, but we can change how we perceive that message. So a trick that I've been trying to really perfect over the past few years that's allowed me to stand on stage, do podcasts, do whatever other interviews, etc., is to understand that I will always be my harshest critic. There is nothing anyone can say or do that will affect me further than me taking it on board. So if I refuse to take it on board to my core, it's not going to harm me. I can take it on as base level and go, oh, actually, you're right. I should change my speech pattern, or I should address the speed at which I'm speaking, or the words in which I use, etc. So you can actually dissect constructive criticism from basically all negative comments.
You can do. To play devil's advocate on that regard as well, it's an awful lot of the polarization of our society has led to this knee-jerk fucking need to self-satisfy by projecting onto others, and I think that's fucking nonsense.
Well, it's basic psychiatry.
It's like the adverts on television, kitchen phobia or something. You've got to have a new kitchen because they're coming to visit. For God's sake.
I believe that they termed it in the 70s, didn't they? Keeping up with the Joneses.
They did indeed.
And so a lot of people are still weaponized into that, and it's in the watches they wear, the trainers. Trainers then now have become a seasonal thing. You look at fashion in the way that's become, it used to be a couple of seasons a year. Now it's literally, you've got a couple of weeks or months. Obviously, COVID's going to affect the way that market sort of works. But the idea that you still have to be up to date or else you will be ridiculed and judged by your peers. But that is a perpetuated paradigm that is created for profit by capitalism. And that needs to self-perpetuate. Because people, look at what people have realized. With all the clothes shopping non-essential, they're going, I've worn this T-shirt 3 days in a row and I didn't implode. Nothing bad happened. Do you know what I mean? But they're starting to recognize that actually the narratives that they've self-perpetuated of going, I can't wear this same outfit twice because of the judgment, or I can't reuse this because it's better to buy one because it makes me look affluent. People are really changing their behavior throughout all of this.
Good. And just here's the thing, don't stop there, right? If that's where you are mentally, right? Fuck, I'm after losing my thought. Bastard. It was a good one too. You
had such gusto and energy.
I did. Oh no,
I sometimes wonder if
I'm
being egotistical with all my stories.
Why?
And I decided I'm not. What it is I really like sharing.
I think that's evident by the life that you've lived. You want to share your skills. You want to share your life.
It doesn't come across
with people. So it's not at all. And I think actually, it's something that more people need to do, because actually the people that are only reading about you as this 8-year-old geezer that grew some weed and then said fuck you to the police and grew some more weed, it humanizes you. It shows that who you are. And actually, if you take into consideration that a lot of the life you lived, at least the information that you've shared here today with us, that has to be taken into consideration with these things. I know that you've broken the law and the law is the law, but ultimately, again, you are not a criminal. You are not some gangster bad man that's grown to make all the money in the world and dealing in other drugs or trafficking people. You are not a dangerous criminal. You are a man who decided to utilize his skills in gardening, his agricultural experience, to cultivate a medicine for your own betterment of your health.
There was no treatment for my disease. I was left with blood pressure tablets and nothing else.
Wow.
There is no cure or treatment for kidney failure.
So are they, as we said before, the specialists that were interested, are they the specialists that are prescribing cannabis, or are they the kidney failure specialists? Are they
they're prescribing cannabis. He knows about my condition. Because he was a pain clinician, he prescribed it for the pain from my kidneys and my artificial hips. But are they taking... little bit of a subterfuge, but we've got on well.
Tell me this. I mean, has there been, and I'm sorry if this comes across as personal, so feel free not to answer this, but has there been any sort of testing of your kidney functioning since the combination of your diet change and obviously your predominant cannabis use?
It's been up and down.
Okay, interesting.
It started to improve when I grew my first crop.
Yeah.
When they took that, I had no meds, and it dropped to a really dangerous point. I got some off the peg from a friend, capsules. My readings started to go up. Then I went on to the prescription meds, and my blood readings now are virtually normal.
Really?
Yeah.
Right. So is there a transfer of information between...
I tried passing it to the Kidney Research Association and they won't publish it.
But is there at least somebody interested in hearing the story? Because this is something that we're missing. Well, obviously, yeah, we'll do everything we can to obviously publicize this story, and that's entirely why I created this platform.
I believe that the cannabis and the diet are making a major difference to my kidneys.
Good.
And I think you need the two combined. But yeah. I think one would help. Two will be extra beneficial.
Well, it's a holistic approach. I mean, if we look at most illnesses, seem to arise from inflammation. We're starting to understand the combination of certain cannabinoids and even some of the minor sort of compounds such as terpenes and flavonoids have an effect on regulation of vast amounts of systems within the human body. They seem to basically just normalize a lot of functionality. And this brings me back a quick point to, you mentioned Ibogaine earlier. Yeah. Predominantly the main reason it is used is it seems to basically reset neurological pathways around addiction. So it's almost, I don't know the science of it, so I'm going to butcher this with an analogy of saying it's kind of like muscle memory. And so basically Ibogaine effectively massages the muscle memory out of it so that when you then brought back into your day-to-day routine in life, you still have the stresses, etc., but you won't have that craving, that internal mechanism from the neurological pathways. And that's a science that they're still not really getting around, because again, it's a cultural thing within some African cultures, and it's still a drug, even though I think it's non-psycho, or it's very low psychoactivity, or it's a weird form of psychoactivity in comparison to a lot of the drugs that is scheduled amongst. When there's a few people I've met in the UK that have utilized it highly successfully, with people who are heroin dependent.
What was the name of the guy on Rogan who does On It? Aubrey Marcus. Didn't he fucking take it for like a couple of weeks or whatever? And he was banging on about how amazing it was, but it was absolute fucking hell. Like he earned it.
I'm not against recreational cannabis. We predominate on medicine, but if you're smoking a joint just for fun, you're still medicating yourself.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at it. So me and you have both been smoking throughout of this. We are both supplementing our endocannabinoid systems, which is then, as we've just alluded to, helping sort of regulate and normalize a lot of the other regulatory systems within our bodies. The difference is you have a little piece of paper that says that you're a legal, good citizen, whereas I don't have a piece of paper, so I'm a criminal. Do you know what I mean? Whereas I'm smoking this because I'm enjoying this, and it's what I do when I record now.
Well, you just sparked me off. This is my meds.
Interesting looking. Oh, is it a giant? Oh, it's a giant pipette. I couldn't quite figure.
Yeah, same.
You just stick it in the thing, and I'm taking that much.
Is that 100 mil, 50 mil?
1 mil.
Nice.
And that's it.
Not jealous or anything.
The funny thing is, if they'd sent me to prison, they'd have had to provide this in prison to me.
Yeah, but this is the argument that's sort of being made now, is that how do we draw a distinction between recreational and medical use? Because I believe I saw Clark French speak somewhere, where were we? Dublin, at the launch of whatever the movie was called, Green something or other. I can't pull out my house right now. And he said that I get medical benefit from consuming this, but I also enjoy it. How can it be legal for me to do one thing, but how can it be okay for me to do one thing because it's medical, and it's immoral for me to do it because I'm enjoying it on the other side?
But it typifies the whole of the cannabis scene. It's an anomaly in itself.
Yeah, it doesn't fit into any of the regulations. It doesn't fit into any of the models. I mean, this is why pharmacists or rather the big pharma as an industry, have had an issue with this. Is it doesn't fit your traditional double-blind models. It doesn't work in the same way where they can prove efficacy, because there's such diversity within it, and the variance of effect. You and I all three of us could sit in a room, consume the exact same amount of the exact same cultivar, and have 3 very different experiences from it.
Fact.
And that's what they're really struggling to get their head around now. So them trying to standardize certain cultivars to treat certain conditions across a broad spectrum of varied endocannabinoid systems is bound to fail. So we're learning now about cultivar variants. So this is something that came up with the launch of Epidiolex, with a lot of the parents were saying the efficacy of this product is 6 to 8 weeks, and then there's a tolerance buildup that basically crashes it out. So you then need some other variant within it to keep that efficacy at the highest rate.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so this is what we're starting to see across the board. So it's getting, we're either going to have prescribed packages where you get, here's your Monday weed, here's your Tuesday weed, here's your Wednesday, you know what I mean? And you break it up, so you've got variant different cannabinoid profiles, terpene profiles, so it doesn't allow you to build a certain strain tolerance.
Yeah.
But then you risk the problem of not getting the benefit from the continual consumption of whatever the one cultivar was that you were benefiting from. So I think
that's really important, to find the one that suits you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same for recreational smokers. They like some strains, they don't like others.
But it shouldn't be so there shouldn't be such a high cost in it for then I hate this term, but your legitimate medical consumer to have to try all the different variants for them to figure it out.
I was able to tell my consultant what I wanted.
Oh, well, then you were in a very lucky position, I guess.
He offered me lots of different things, and
mm-hmm.
I went for 12.5% THC, 25% CBD.
Nice.
So is that 2 to 1? Yeah, it's 2 to 1, right?
Yeah, 2 to 1.
1 to 2, yeah.
1 to 2. Good man.
Yeah.
Fair play. So I mean, what? I guess for the flavor chasers out there, what kind of flavoring? It's fucking terrible. What
does it taste like?
What's it taste like?
And I have been regarded, because I've done it, as a slightly traitorous. And I said I wanted to say this. I've been slagged off, I suppose is the one way of putting it, over the last day or so for what happened in court, that I pleaded guilty to cultivation for medical purposes, which they've conveniently lost. So I've been done for cultivation according to their paperwork. I took the decision based on my choice. And I object to other people telling me how I can live my life. If they haven't tried it themselves, especially. It's a hell of a stressful place. I've been there 14 months. And at my age, with the stress, it's really had an adverse effect on me. So I took an option I could have fought on. I doubt that I'd have won as things legally stand at the moment. Mm-hmm. Cultivation is cultivation. We've got to work at changing the law, getting the law scrapped, or I don't know. I'm sure that they've got some bloody trick up their sleeve. that they're going to retain control of it and shaft us at the same time.
You don't know half of it.
Yeah, best of both worlds, I imagine, is what they are playing for.
Yes.
But yeah, you're entirely correct that we have to address the law and we have to figure this situation out. But ultimately, it's exactly what we said before about criticism from other people. That's an indicator and a measure of their perspective, and do you know what I mean? And they are not sat in your seat. They are not a man of your age, having lived your life and tried to be a law-abiding citizen, a good man that has provided for the world and actually given more than you have taken. They don't know how they would react in that position. They can pontificate all day long, and let them, frankly. But ultimately, it's the same philosophy I've had for a long time with everything. It's even Tory voters, people that want to sign on for any of the card systems that exist, for people that want to follow a prescription or whatever else. It is entirely your prerogative. What you choose to do, it's only you that has to live with that decision. So any other external criticism, frankly, has no legs as far as I am concerned. So
I'll be as concise as I can, right? Because I don't want to get too fucking hot about this. But I fully echo what you've said. Right, give me a second here.
Gonna be serious here, folks. He took a big breath.
Look,
right, I'll tell a story, shall I?
No. The way that I see it really is, you have an opportunity here. If from the other side of the point of view, if you're upset at what an individual does, just say for Tony in this regard, think about what you're putting out there. Right? Is it positive or is it negative? And I know for a fact that most people within our industry are well aware of how fucking fractured all of this nonsense is, right? And we do not fucking need any more of this bullshit, right?
Totally not.
So what you can do is retain your point of view and put a positive fucking swing on it and concentrate on your approach if you disagree with somebody else's. Do you know that kind of way? You do not have to be subscribed to every single entity that is out there. I'm sure you have a preferential choice. Of course you do, right? That's your prerogative. You're fucking completely entitled to do that. But the biggest fucking problem that we have is fracturing. And I absolutely want to see just support here. Go grand. Tony did what he wanted to do, given the context of him as an individual. And you cannot say anything otherwise. But you can contribute in a positive manner, and we can all coalesce and fucking get on with it. Yeah, that's about as hot as I'm going to get.
I'd say the government are laughing all the way to the bank with divisions within the cannabis community.
They 100% are. They're laughing at us. They're laughing at us while we're fighting at each other. It's fucking crazy. It's crazy.
And it's people's egos that are causing it. People who think what they think is more important than what we all think, all for the general good.
It is, but I mean, there are so many different things that you can actually attribute that to. Do you know what I mean? What you're looking at is an awful lot of different contexts within their individual approach that have led them to that cognitive process. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Go ahead, Simpa.
Yeah. Ultimately, people can only know what people know. So exactly. I've said this a lot, and I'll say it till the day I die. If I was born you, raised you, lived your life, I would be sat there as you, and I would speak as you, think as you, and live as you.
Exactly.
So if we can truly get our heads around that, we can understand that another person can't make your decisions because they haven't had your experience. They don't have your knowledge. They don't have your heart, your soul. They don't have your philosophy, your morality, your integrity, and your decency. They don't have that. Only you do. So by projecting such a negative attitude towards others for the way that they have acted in the world, I think shows more of an insecurity to an individual as to how they would address the situation.
When I stepped out of my back gate and the policeman who was there, "Are you growing?" my humanist reaction was to say, yes, of course. Yeah. My trust in other human beings, compassion also played a part. And consequently, I was badly let down.
You were. But this is just it. I mean, this is a difference between systematic. Do you know what I mean? Like, what you did was correct. Like, you know, kind of when somebody asks you a question, you're feeling good, healthier than you were. You're in a more positive mindset. You want to be fucking sound. Go, yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm not fucking doing anything wrong. Do you know, like, as in, like, I'm not going out to try and fucking exploit people or anything like that. And unfortunately, the fucking system has let you down because of no contextual fucking application. Oh, I'm getting really hot. Simpa, jump in here, will you? For fuck's sake.
No, but we've discussed it, and we'll discuss infinitum, is that the right to grow your own, the right to self-determinism is something that has to be brought forth in the argument of this. Because if we are allowed to get drunk, if we are allowed to, as I always say, climb mountains, if we're allowed to very soon have space tourism and all of this shit that carries the infinitum of risk attached to these things, we should
practice euthanasia upon ourselves.
Indeed.
If we have these choices, then we have to have this choice around our consciousness. But then it comes down to the quite conspiratorial argument of then why is it? Because we know it's not that cannabis causes death. We know it's not that cannabis causes psychosis or any of these mental health problems en masse. It can precipitate people that have a latent issue, but it doesn't, as an individual product, cause a direct consequence in terms of a mental health problem.
Yeah.
We know about the potential benefits in the environment. We know about all of these other things. The only one fucking argument that weighs against it is what cannabis does to the indoctrinated mind, what it does to the enclosed individual that has lived their life with the blinkers on, going, the system's fine and everything's good and I'm a law-abiding citizen, so I've got nothing to worry about. Then if they find themselves in Tony's position where they've been told by a mate, oh, cannabis, right, it'll help this condition, the doctor said that there's fuck all to do, but as you Google on the internet, you're seeing hundreds of people around the world saving themselves with this. You decide to go and do that thinking it's the right fucking thing, and then the system comes down with you with the weight like you're fucking El Chapo. Do you know what I mean?
Sorry.
No, but if you look at it, that's their thing. As Tony said before, the law is broken, but there is no spectrum for the severity of this. For one man growing one plant here versus a criminal enterprise growing 10,000 plants and trafficking children from Vietnam or China or wherever to cultivate these plants. They're equating these two things to be the fucking same. And unfortunately, until we can get in a position where the judicial system can actually truly understand these stories, we're not going to get forward with anywhere.
No,
a lot of the police literally, they are yes men. They unfortunately, as I said before, most of them are the good guy in their narrative. They really believe they're doing the best thing. Whatever it is that drove them to be a cop, they reckon they're helping their community. They're paying their tax, they're saving lives, and they probably are doing a lot of good. There are a lot of good done by the police. But what they do in terms of the persecution and the stigma of the war on drugs and the way they attack us in our sleep and they take our doors off for a few plants, when they surveil us for months on end, they hack into our technology and track our friends and our relationships. It's insane. It's a fucking plant. Most of us do it because we like to get a bit high and watch some fucking cartoons or enjoy a movie a bit more. Most of us don't even know about the medical benefits. We don't even know about how beneficial it is to us. We just know that when 5 of us get together and we have a fucking couple of joints, we laugh our tits off and we set the world to rights. That's millions of people across this planet, and to deny their existence and their freedom and their fair, non-problematic use is to deny the basis of what it is to be.
No, you're right, man. You're right, and this isn't an advocation on my part, but for people that haven't tried it and have a really, really obtuse view on it, I really feel sorry for you. You're missing out. You're missing the fuck out.
I mean, to caveat that, cannabis obviously isn't for everybody.
No, it's not.
Will have adverse effects, obviously, too.
Yeah, it wasn't an advocation. It wasn't an advocation.
Yeah, and I know what you're saying, but I'm just sort of to clarify on it that it should. No, but it should. I still believe that everyone should try it until we arrive at a point where, say, we understand that maybe some people are actually allergic to cannabis. For a shit analogy right now, it's like peanuts. Then we arrive in a world where it's all fully legalized and regulated, and everything has cannabinoids in it, has a little label on it, so people that have a sensitivity to it do not consume it. So then the vast majority of other people that consume it without any problems to their health, to their regulation of their system, or to consequence to their life, can do so while being a decent everyday citizen.
Well, I've taken cannabis, I suppose, for about 50 years.
Would you say you've been a good law-abiding citizen in those 50 years? Other than...
No. I think what changed me as well was back in the 70s, we were very lucky on our farm. We got friendly with a guy called... I can't remember the name now, but they were the people who were busted in Operation Julie. But they were a Welsh couple doctors.
Was Operation Julie the LSD bust?
Yeah, they made LSD, and they used to give us a bag of 200 for 10 quid.
Wow. What? I suppose they were making millions of trips, so that's nothing.
That changed me. When I was on the farm, I took quite a lot with friends over a period of months, and I reckon that opened me up very much.
Yeah, same. So when will that have been? What sort? Because that'll have been
about 30 years old.
So that'll have been some fucking good acid as well at the time.
It was red strawberry dots.
See, that was during the time when, literally, for the people that don't know about sort of LSD culture, you'd only really get a few batch producers, because when you actually did it correctly, the volume you got back meant that you could supply regions for years, months, years at a time. And then obviously people knew about different batches' strength, and the way they were synthesized would give certain different properties to it, so you could have sort of different experiences. So yeah, man, to have lived at a time like that. I mean, now I live in a time where people can produce, synthesizing it and then produce it through the dark web of all different kinds. We have so many different analogs of these. We have all of those, they're called now the ABC drugs, the 2CIs, 2TBs, etc. So yeah, people are exploring these compounds, and it's having, for the most part, a seriously profound effect on people's consciousness, which in turn I think is having an effect on culture, which I think is why we're kind of living through another sort of 60s radical movement quietly in the drug scene.
Why we're not liked as well, because we are a subculture outside the norms of society, and they don't like that. They see us as dangerous.
Yeah, exactly. The establishment has always seen non-conformity as a threat to its ideological paradigm, to the infrastructure that it has created, whether it be a religious-based one, a monarch-based one, a so-called democracy, or neoliberalistic capitalist one. All of these have an inbuilt ideology behind them that is, in part of itself, I suppose to a certain extent, not fascistic, but authoritarian, that is controlling. Is we know better. We are the elite. We have convened our councils and our governments, and we have decided what is best for you people. And that just can't work, because as we said before about the individual nature of people, if you get all these people together and you pool them from only certain schools or certain class backgrounds, they only have a certain worldview. Indeed. So they've never experienced pills at a rave like we have. They've never experienced free parties or sneaking away and getting a 3-litre bottle of White Lightning and a bit of tack. You know what I mean? And having to go get someone to get 10 Richmond or whatever from the shop to then 4 years skin up a joint behind the co-op. You know, they don't understand that culture, that community.
That never happened to me. I didn't try cannabis till I was 30.
Wow.
I never encountered it.
You beat me on that one. You beat me on that one. I used to think I was late comer.
I was, 35 when I took acid for the first time.
So I bet it really will have had such a profound sort of juxtaposition of worldviews.
Those strawberry microdots had no arsenic or anything in them, so you didn't end up chewing your jaw to pieces.
Yeah.
Wow, I've tried them all over the time, but I've come back to cannabis, and that's all I take now.
Well, I suppose this is the difference of it. Is cannabis, I would say, is analogous to sort of tobacco or alcohol, in that it can be a lifelong relationship with the substance, as long as you don't allow your relationship with it to become problematic and it to become of a detriment to your health and your life long term. You know what I mean? Whereas a lot of the psychedelic compounds, or I suppose in more newer parlance, entheogenic substances, is that they are, for certain periods of time, we were almost looking at getting back to cultural things where you take it as a birthright. So, you know, you'd have a trip experience at a certain age that would then usher in that new part of your life. That's something that I have very much built into my drug consumption over the years. I was very much a hedonistic, self-destructive drug consumer that would take anything I could get my hands on for a very long time as a way of pacifying my own personal pain from various sexual, physical, emotional, and mental abuse from various institutions as a child. So I fucking echo your thoughts on the system very much. But then I did find these substances had profound effect on my worldview. They allowed me an opportunity to explore parts of my consciousness that I didn't know were there, ways for me to address my trauma and have this third-party relationship with these events that otherwise were so traumatic and destructive that all they could do was bring me pain and trauma, and to allow me to forgive, as you said before, to forgive my abusers, even to look at the situation that I was in and to understand what the hell was going on and why events played out the way they did without these compounds and without these these psychedelic trips, these entheogenic experiences, I would have been unable to process that trauma with the framework of modern psychiatry.
Yeah, when you think about 10 years after I'd tripped and my mind was open quite a lot, I then went to Papua New Guinea. Mm-hmm. And the two really collided. I became Papua New Guinean. Mm. They called me the White Kanaka because they couldn't get me black. Inside, I was black. I empathized tremendously with them. I got a story about how they taught me. I never cried for my wife when she died. It's not the done thing in England anyway. I was extraordinarily stoned. At the funeral, a friend rolled me a monstrous joint and I just went through the whole thing in a stupor. Mm. So some years later, I'm in Papua New Guinea. They'd killed the teacher I worked with. They'd poisoned him. So we went to his funeral. And I'm standing there with a teacher, a Papua New Guinea teacher. I'm the only white man there. And they're all covering themselves in ash and painting their bodies, and the crying is outrageous. And I just found myself crying. Mm. And I've never been the same again. I mean, emotionally, it still stirs me telling that story because I'm so aware of how I felt. I was crying my eyes out. I mean, okay, they thought, oh, what a nice man. He's crying for someone he never really knew. Well, that wasn't the case. I was crying for the wife I'd lost.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus.
Wow.
No, I mean...
And it taught me so much.
I can imagine so. I mean, it's hard, it's not directly relatable, but I understand because one of my best friends when I was a kid was my grandfather, and I fucking loved him. I loved him. Do you know that kind of way? And he died when I was maybe 13 or 14 or whatever, and I took that shit fucking hard, man, to a point where I remember being at the funeral and they were they were carrying his coffin, all the uncles and stuff like that, and obviously there was no space for me, and all I wanted to do was to just help, to just be part of it. And the only thing I could do as a kid was put my hand on the back of the coffin and just symbolically walk behind them, you know. And I was trying my best to be reserved and you know,
British.
Well, I'm not British, so fuck you. I definitely wasn't trying to be British.
No, but I know what you meant. That's what British is, though.
Stoic, you know, that kind of way. And well, in actual fact,
it's so bad for you. It's so bad for you.
I mean, it's especially prevalent in males, and this is one of the reasons why I'm telling the story. It's quite personal and it's quite you know, emotional. But here's the thing: it's like my grandmother's still alive, and she curses him to death every day, but loves him, do you know, that kind of way. And whenever she talks about the funeral, she has it on tape, video cassette, and she watches it all the time. And I used to think that was crazy, but I fully get it. I get it. I understand it. And she saw a complete coalescing of her entire family coming together at that point. And for me, she always used to point that out. You know, I'd stand behind the thing and I'd put my hand on the coffin and whatnot. But there was a point within it where I couldn't bear it anymore. I couldn't bear it, and I got up out of the pew and I walked over to the candles and I lit a candle and I fucking burst, absolute burst. I couldn't hold it in. And one of the other reasons that I'm saying that is, I mean, I rarely let myself get into that state when I was growing up, you see, into my 20s and whatever, and the whole lot. And then obviously through, you know, being aided by cannabis consumption, I would say that, again, that release of stress, of this manly, stoic, you know, you need to do this and be strong and everything like this. And to a point where now, I'll be the first one to fucking tell you that if I feel like crying at any fucking point, if I'm outside, if I'm, you know, outside of, I was going to say fucking getting a coffee or whatever, and I feel it, I'll let it go. And I as much as I can, I'm not you know, I can't just switch it on and off. but the release, and you actually, I get to a point where I'm emotionally remembering the last release that I got from just leaving this go and not leaving it be pent up and whatnot. And now I can't remember why I was telling the story, but you see the point. It was like holding that in for such a long time, and for you to sort of just have that moment where you felt that, fuck it, I can't hold this shit anymore, and I shouldn't anyway, and you just fucking burst out, man. I get it. Sorry.
You've missed on my life story. For 10 years in London, when I left British public school, I had to get a job.
And what was the job?
I was a paramedic in the London Ambulance Service. So I wore a uniform and a cap, and my accent, which was OSL, chap,
no way,
rapidly modified.
Oh my God. The vision. I wish I could show the viewers the vision that just flashed across my brain.
Family Guy 1950s-esque thing or whatever.
Excuse me, good man, but who do you think you're talking to?
Tell me you were like this.
So what did you see in the streets of London then as a paramedic? Well,
I delivered 200 babies.
Wow. So you put a lot of life in the world. Damn.
On the underground, in offices, in the naughty girls' home. I've been to murders, suicides, terrible, horrific road crashes.
Fucking hell,
one or two stories that I can't tell you about because they got sexual innuendo. I did.
Well, I mean, man, that's heavy. That's Jesus Christ.
I loved it. It's working with people, helping people who are in distress. It's the most amazing feeling.
It very much seems to be a theme of your life from your life's work. As I said, I very much look forward to having a peruse of your book and trying to sort of piece this all together, because you've told us quite a lot here, but I feel like we've barely scratched the surface in a lot of ways.
Well, when I sit down with friends and we have a joint, I tell stories.
I suppose you got.
I get people say things, and I say, no, it's not like that at all. You've got to look at life in a whole different way. For an example, I was games master at the school. I've never played football in my life. Football it's a working class game. I wasn't working class in those days. And I walked out onto the pitch in my short trousers, and there were 500 black people around, and they all fucking burst out laughing. And I said, what is it? And they said, oh, Mr. Bevington, your legs, they look like chicken's legs. And I was sort of going, round my legs, laughing.
That's gas.
It's a great leveler.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly that. I mean, as you said, from social experience, from various cultural experiences, various drug experiences, you've had a very varied life, and it's a shame that I feel that you've only come to prevalence to me anyway at this point because of the court case and because of what has obviously happened. I suppose one thing I've just become conscious of that we haven't actually mentioned, I suppose, is the outcome of the of the court case.
Well, they said, let's see if I can read it to you because it explains the whole story. I was fined £21 victim surcharge, which my solicitor calls court tax.
Well, just for the listeners and for the audience, for the victim surcharge, the victim that is put on the document is the Crown. Just an interesting factoid for you there.
Yeah, and the other statement, which really pissed me off, was they say the Crown Court was of the opinion that punishment was not expedient. And I take that to mean that they gave in to political pressure and gave me the smallest sentence they possibly could because they didn't want to be behaving politically inexpediently.
All right, so
they give it's a 2-year suspended sentence. So that basically means that 2 years without further admittance, I suppose, of consuming illicit cannabis or any other criminal activity.
Yeah,
you'll be fine after the 2-year window. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure that was sort of clarified so people knew sort of the outcome of this.
That was actually my question.
Yeah, which I suppose to play sort of devil's advocate of the audience here, or just to inform you a bit more, the maximum potential sentence here for cultivation is potentially up to 14 years. So
there were 2 offences.
So yeah, that could have got very dangerous. So again, to go back to our earlier comments that we were saying about people that would begrudge you pleading guilty to cultivation, as was said for medical purposes, but then wasn't sort of put through on paperwork, which is actually not that uncommon of a practice. The more I'm learning about people's various cases over the past few months with the Seed Our Future project, the more we're understanding that the CPS is manipulating and misleading people like yourselves into getting a base prosecution so that they could just get you through the system, because a lot of them don't want to be doing it. They're seeing all of this stuff in the news, they're seeing the tides change, and they don't want to be dealing with people like yourself who just shouldn't be there in the first place.
No, but I just feel that the whole concept of prosecuting was immoral, and I'm quoted as saying the law is an ass, and the law is an ass.
Yeah, I loved reading that quote in the paper, because it's true. So I think you've had the best outcome that is basically possible. Yeah, the lowest charges possible in terms of court fees, and the lowest sentence for the 2 charges, because again, it's not even the 2 individual charges. It's the fact in their eyes, in the court's eyes, that you have been that disrespectful of the law to then dare to set up a second cultivation when you've given adequate reason as to why you were doing it. I can understand if they'd broken down your door and you had a pack of scales and 10 grand and loads of Mylar baggies, and then you'd gone and done the same thing again, then yeah, hell yeah, go heavy handed. The second time round, that cop should have literally just gone, I didn't hear that, here's the caution paperwork, la 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 la, and walk the fuck away. And I do hope that man faces ridicule in the locker room, in the back offices, when he sat in a car and going, aren't you the guy that busted that 80-year-old guy for growing weed for his fucking pain? Do you know?
Yeah, I do. And the other thing is, like, if you think about the potential here, right, and they were going to, say, making an example of Tony, right? Tony, you're 80, right? 14 fucking years in prison, and you've the gall to criticize the man. 94. Get the fuck out.
Well, I could live to 105, I reckon.
I'm just contextually. What? I'm sure I hope you live to 150, mate, and have another fucking go back to Papua New Guinea again.
No. I've married one, and that was adequate. She tried to kill me and my daughter, so I divorced.
Fucking hell.
Again, this is what I said, because like, every story has a story. Inside that story, there's 3 more stories. Then inside that, there's like 4 more stories.
It's bananas. Absolutely bananas. This is
coming soon, the Tony Bevington podcast.
That's it.
By episode 7,000, you might have a clue what's going on in his life.
I was walking in a little town in Papua New Guinea, and this guy, he was the island kickbox champion, big, buggy, bloody huge bloke, came up and said, Tony, give me $20. Well, he was very drunk and very big, so I gave him 20. And the next day I saw him, he said, oh, Tony, I'm sorry, I was very drunk yesterday, and I haven't got $20, and if you want me to kill someone for you, just let me know.
Wow. Did just such a juxtaposition in culture. Do you know what I mean? Wow, man. Yeah, Duke, I envy your brain in a lot of ways, to see the world through your eyes, to have, because obviously you came from, as you said yourself, quite an affluent background, and then to have travelled the way you have and to have had a lot of the experiences, man, that's...
I'll tell you what, so here's a question for you. Is there any place that you are still itching to see in the world?
Well, Papua New Guinea again, and India.
India?
I'd like to go to India.
Well, hopefully, I was going to say, hopefully travel restrictions will lift sometime soon, and we'll be allowed out the country with our blue passports and get to go some places.
Your blue passports? You can fuck off with that one.
Hey. At this rate, Maca, we'll have a civil partnership, right? I need to get out of this goddamn country.
If I was going to go, I'd go to Portugal. I did a tour around Portugal with my daughter last year, and I really enjoyed it. It's a lovely country.
Yeah, well, I wish Portugal is definitely on my list, and they're getting ever more friendly towards our worldview. So hopefully someday I'll be able to travel to Portugal and be very welcomed.
I've got a mixed race daughter, Sarah, who's 22 now. She was born when I was 60.
Wow, fucking hell! So how many kids you got in total then, Tony?
Well, I got 3 that are mine and 1 that's not mine. I was in a village in Papua New Guinea, and this woman came out of her house with a newborn baby and said, "I don't want it. I'm going to chuck him in the river." So I adopted him.
Wow. Where's he these days?
In Camborne with me.
Wow.
Well, he's with his girlfriend now.
Yeah. Wow, man. So, like, one of the things that has underpinned this whole thing is
our silence.
Well, is our shocked reaction to it, but is your humanity. Do you know what I mean? Such a term is loosely used too often. I mean, not even often, but when it is, it's very loosely used. But I think it's a very apt descriptor in this sense because, yeah. You've really fucking tried.
There is a potential to make a most beautiful world here.
Yeah,
and it's now or never.
Really,
my philosophy is a green environment, a green climate, and cooperate and love each other. And it may sound naive, but I try to do it in my life.
I don't think it's naive. I think it could be construed as being slightly idealistic, but. It's good to strive towards ideals. If we have ideals, we have a vision. If we have a vision, we can carve a path. If we can carve a path, then we can move down it. You know.
I mean, you can simplify ideals too. Do you know what I mean? Just to make them amicable, but they can be way more fucking complex than individuals. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But
mine's a fairly simplistic outlook.
Yeah, but I think that's a lot of people. They have a different path towards it, but that's ultimately what they want to see. They want to see a world that is functionable, that is renewable, that can actually function long term. That isn't a case of we'll cash in our generation, get our shit, and then when we're your age, fucked. Because I mean, my generation, by the time we're your age, we're already fucked. So my nephews and nieces, their kids. So unless we make the changes today and in our generation, I'd actively start to encourage these conversations around legalizing and regulating all substances, around.
Yeah, but
the benefits of
it's far broader than that. The education system needs to be scrapped and started again.
We were kind of seeing that because it's collapsing. So many people are homeschooling.
Bloody good thing. Yeah, but what they teach is obedience
and conforming
and selective history. Clearly.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. It's
of course. Yeah. I mean, they don't teach about the Negroes or. Colonialism and the
occupation of Ireland or India.
The Papua New Guineans and the Africans, they're more Christian than we are.
Yeah, and you got to think of the consequences of how they're applying the radical ideology of some of the historic religions.
Say hello.
Hello, you all right?
Yes, really.
Yes, I'll only keep you for a little bit longer. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
How many more stories do you want?
We're gonna have to get you on basically now every other month or so.
Pretty much.
Yeah, we'll continually bombard our audience with stories because you've got so goddamn many. But one of the things I did want to get sort of your opinion on is where do you stand on, again, I hate the way we introduce this sort of conversation, but medical versus rec and legal versus decriminalization. What would you like to see as an ideal cannabis model and market in the UK?
Freedom of choice.
So that would be everything legal?
Yeah. And I include heroin and cocaine in that.
I echo that entirely because there is too often a small echo chamber in cannabis where we go, we have a right to get high and we have a right to do this and a right to do this, and then we'll still go around and go, well, you consume heroin, so you're a smackhead, you're a crackhead, and they speak so derisively and derogatory.
I would elaborate on that. I would say freedom of choice as long as it hurts nobody else.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's responsible consumption. So my ideal would be a legalized, regulated model with accountability and traceability. So every substance that a person takes into their body is sold through a retail outlet or a pharmacy or whatever dispense model, comes with the base information and education of how to consume that safely, what to do in the event of an emergency, a contact number, and ideally with most substances, an overdose prevention, or not even overdose prevention, an antagonist that removes whatever it is that is bonding to that neurotransmitter so that it will effectively end that experience. If we do that, there is no such thing as dangerous consumption. The danger around consumption of drugs mostly at the minute is misinformation and education. Okay. Look at ecstasy deaths. A lot of the people that have died from ecstasy have overhydrated or underhydrated because of lack of education. They've either been scared into the myth of you've got to drink all this water and they end up dying from sodium poisoning, or they've never been told harm reduction advice of take a half a pill and build it up and have a drink and then see how you feel. You know what I mean? They haven't had that community of consumers and friends and people to help them consume that substance in the safest way. And I think that's the other side of this that's missing is social consumption needs to exist with regulated substances, because if everyone's just doing drugs in the home, and they can very quickly end up in the problematic cycles of consumption. Whereas if you've then got to consume your substance with other people in a similar area, we end up titrating our own use, the same way we do in pubs. So the barman will cut you off after too many pints, they'll get a taxi for you, and you'll be safeguarded. Do you know what I mean? You won't be demonized and kicked onto the street. Whereas if you go now and get a fix in a heroin house somewhere and you overdose, you'll be kicked to the fucking curb because you jeopardized everybody else in that house. You know what I mean? The number of people who die from overdoses from intravenous drugs in this country because the people there with are scared of being criminalized is astronomical. It's terrifying. So if we brought all of those elements together into that system, I agree, we could have free fucking choice. But the other side to that I think helps disincentivize dependence and abuse of certain substances is a radical overhaul of society, because people take drugs problematically, predominantly as escapism. They're trying to get away from a pain in their life, be it mental, spiritual, physical, emotional, financial. Do you know what I mean? There's a pressure or a stress that they can't deal with and they can't overcome individually. So they go towards a crutch, be it eating too much, be it having risky sexual liaisons or taking drugs or driving a car fast or whatever.
Sexual liaison? What's that?
You've had enough experience in this over your lifetime, I'm sure, Tony. We could do a series of podcasts on your sexual liaisons, I imagine.
I'm not talking.
So yeah, I think I agree that, yeah, basically responsible consumption and the right for people to choose is the ultimate goal. And I think the trajectory of society is we'll get there eventually. It's just how many more people have to suffer, how much more of a detriment and destructive consequence does prohibition have to have on society?
I mean, I was only convicted because of the law. And if you look at the law, it's been fabricated and framed by men for political and economic reasons a long time ago. And it's just been perpetuated. And now people are brainwashed into accepting what they are told about it, but they're not being told the truth.
Yeah, we've ended up in a position where cannabis is illegal, so therefore cannabis is bad. We just haven't proven why or how yet. That's the overarching mentality of especially conservative politicians, is that, well, it must be bad. I've always heard it was bad and it does all this stuff. But if you ask them, they'll all have a story. Like, I don't know if you've seen recently the Outlaw video that's gone around of a clip from Boris Johnson in April 2000, where he sat going, well, I have some perfectly respectable neighbours, bourgeois types that on an evening when they've got nothing else to do, will enjoy it, a spliff and do no harm. Do you know what I mean? That kind of shit. We need to draw attention to that, because that's the majority consumer of all drugs. Sorry, I've lost my voice doing that impression.
I hope you feel filthy after that. I really fucking do.
I feel like I nailed it though. We'll hear in the comment section.
It was. That's why I'm saying it. If it was bad, I'll let you off.
I just, as a humanist, I believe that people have the right to make a choice, and I carry that through all aspects of life. So if someone chooses to be anti-abortion, that's their right. It's their choice. I just think that whatever they believe, they shouldn't be insulting with the way they put it across.
Yeah, and I think abortion's quite an interesting one, and there's a few of the sort of socially taboo subjects like that I suppose is continually taboo because of religious moralizing, I suppose, to a lesser and certain degree. But yeah, the argument should be that you can have a stance against something, but your stance against it shouldn't override somebody's stance for it. Do you know what I mean? And that sounds sort of weird. We live in a world where these things exist. Abortion exists, drug exists. If you don't like drugs or abortion, don't have an abortion or don't do drugs. Do you know what I mean? I don't really like alcohol all that much anymore, but I'm not then going to go, oh, you guys need to stop it because according to the World Health Organization, 5% of all deaths are comorbid with alcohol consumption.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I could pontificate infinitum of the destruction of that substance, but they have the right to choose it. Do you know what I mean? So that if that then exists in that capacity, it has to across everything else. In the same way that people have the right to be fundamentally Islamic, but they do not have the right to kill somebody. You have the right to be a fundamental Catholic or Christian, but you don't have the right to shame and demonize gay people or trans people or abortion.
Pray the gay away.
Do you know what I mean? You don't have...
Because you're totally saying what I was. You're totally saying the same thing.
Yeah. Just
he has a habit of that. He has a habit of that, you know.
I expand, I'll have you know.
Well, yes, you did. Philosophically.
So, I guess my last question really is, well, I suppose two-parter. Are we now going to see a sequel? Are we going to see another autobiography? I can't even say it. Autobiography?
Yes, but I'm going to do it as a sort of confessions.
Ooh, interesting.
That'll sell.
With philosophies thrown in.
That's awesome.
Okay.
And stories about my travels. Because I'm full of stories. Oh, yeah, you are.
I really hope that comes along on the podcast.
It did.
Oh, thanks, darling. You're a real support.
Where can people find this book that you've
Amazon.
written? Is it on anywhere else?
we're slightly anti-Bezos over here.
I'm afraid not.
Okay, I'll make an exception because you were such a good guest.
But if you want more stories, invite me on again.
Oh, we will definitely be having you on again, Tony. You don't worry about that. So I guess my final question for you then is, what does the future hold for you? What's your plans for this year? And now that you've, I suppose, dealt with this, you've got the conviction under your belt and you've got a prescription.
Yeah, that's finished. I want to start activism again, and I'm waiting. I've got plans which I've talked over with Guy and Phil for some sort of activism when the unlockdown comes.
Excellent.
I also have a van out the back which I've converted to a motorhome, and I want to tour England and visit people and talk about it.
Excellent. Yeah, got a little road show. I think that would be good. That would be great.
To the Camelford meeting, didn't you, Simpa?
Yeah.
And I want meetings like that all over the country.
Yeah, that would be.
And I want to go and say, come on, stop sitting on your hands, get out there.
I think you'd really be able to sell that with the narrative, obviously, that you've had in the media. If you put it together as an education thing, because of the story, because of who you are, and that you sort of rebelled that second time, and the way that you've kind of handled it, I think a lot of people would be interested in sort of attending these events, and it would be a good social space and education space.
I have other schemes afoot as well.
Excellent. Well, I look forward to hearing all about them in future podcast episodes.
Yeah, we need to have a unlockdown.
Yeah, we definitely need to get there. I mean, I did see rumors.
Because also I'll go in my van to festivals, and I belong to a lot of vanner groups, so I go camping with vanners. And
well, if there's ever another Durham 420, sure.
Yeah, that sort of thing. But
we are looking.
A lot of people live in vans, and I'm friends with some of them.
Mm-hmm.
And we get a field, and we light a fire, and we get smashed. And
there you go. You can host your own festival when this is over.
Yeah, I did one year before last down here. We had 40 vans.
Excellent. Well, I look forward to an invite in the coming months when hopefully the British government comes to its senses in some small way and allows us out of this fucking lockdown. I mean, there are a few festivals booked, obviously, for people that don't know within the cannabis community. Product Earth are still planning to go ahead on I think it's the weekend of the 20th of August this year. And then you've got Paradise Gardens, Hydroponic Fair and Music Festival taking place the 6th, 7th, 8th, I think it is, of September. Both worth checking out. And as a sly little plug, you will hopefully, if lockdown is lifted, you will see me and Maca there.
And
and Tony, but you'll see me and Maca there recording at the Simpa Life booth, where we'll be recording podcast episodes and having a chill out area. We'll also, with a team of people, been helping to run a club hub at 1 or 2 events around the country as well. So we'll keep you posted about all of that lot. Once again, Tony, I just want to say thank you very much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure and really, wow, powerful listening to some of your stories, man.
You're blowing my mind open anyway, I'll tell you that.
You've got some editing to do, for sure.
Hopefully not.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what it looks like, but I'm sure our audience will enjoy it and love it. So yeah, as always,
I'm looking forward to it. Thanks.
Yeah, we will have you on again, like I say, in the near future. I just want to do a special shout out to Cambers, who's just become a highest tier, legend tier patron for the Simpa Life. If you haven't already, please do check out the Simpa Life on Patreon, patreon.com/the Simpa Life. We have various tiers there, starting from I think £3 all the way up to the legendary tier of £50 a month, where you'll help keep the lights on and keep us motivated and well fed, so we can continue to grow this project. As always, you can check us out on every social media platform, well, basically every one of them, at the Simpa Life. I have been Simpa, he's been Maca, he's been Tony. You have been wonderful, and we will catch you later, folks. Peace and love.
Bye.